What secrets lie hidden in Britain's Ice Age caves? Step into Ice Age Britain. 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens braved brutal winters and met the Neanderthals. This is the story of survival, of art, and of the first humans in Britain. If you enjoyed this journey into deep prehistory, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The spread of Homo sapiens across the world was not one single epic journey. It was a pulse of movement lasting tens of thousands of years, shaped constantly by climate and environment. When deserts expanded, ancient migration routes closed. People stayed put, sometimes for generations. When rains returned, new lakes and green corridors opened across the Sahara. Animals moved, and humans followed. This was not an invasion. It was patience, adaptation, a stepwise approach to survival. From Africa, they crossed the Arabian Peninsula and entered the Levant. In each new environment, humans experimented. They improved hunting tools, refined fire use, developed new forms of shelter. Knowledge grew, and so did the number of people who shared it. By 50,000 years ago, modern humans had reached the frontier of Neanderthal territory. Archaeology shows alternating layers. Modern humans appear, then vanish, then return again. Migration was not a wave crashing onto the shore. It was a tide, shifting slowly, one campfire at a time. This was the beginning of a new chapter in human evolution. When Homo sapiens reached Europe, the world was cold and harsh. Tundra and grassland swept across what is now France and Germany. Glaciers dominated the northern horizon. Woolly rhinoceros, bison, and mammoth roamed the plains. For decades, historians imagined this encounter as a clash, a straightforward story of modern humans replacing Neanderthals through force or superiority. But evidence tells a more complex truth. In many regions, the two species lived side by side for thousands of years. They hunted the same prey, used the same shelters, and may have exchanged knowledge and practices. They were not strangers. They were close enough, physically, socially, and genetically, to form families. Ancient DNA now proves that all humans outside Africa carry Neanderthal ancestry. This means contact was not fleeting. It was intimate. Relationships formed. Children were born. The meeting of these two species was not a battle. It was coexistence, shaped by climate, movement, and time. Their interaction set the stage for the transformation of Europe, and eventually, Britain. Why did Homo sapiens expand across continents, while other human species remained regional? Archaeologists point to three powerful advantages: population, communication, and innovation. Modern humans appear to have lived in larger social groups than Neanderthals. More people meant more hunters, more children, more tool makers, and more opportunities to solve problems. A larger community carried a larger pool of knowledge. Language may also have played a transformational role. Neanderthals likely had complex speech, but Homo sapiens seem to have developed more structured communication. Stories, instructions, and strategies could be explained in detail. Knowledge didn't die when an expert died. It accumulated across Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Homo sapiens learned to craft multi-layer clothing, long stone blades, throwing spears, bone points, needles, shelters, and symbolic objects. Each new invention could spread rapidly through social networks. This was the secret advantage. Innovation wasn't isolated in one family or tribe. It traveled, grew, and reshaped entire regions. Adaptability became the engine of expansion, allowing Homo sapiens to push deeper into the northern edges of the world, including the lands that would one day become Britain. By 45,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had spread across much of Central and Southern Europe. From Italy and Romania to France and Germany, new technologies and cultural behaviors appear in the archaeological record. One major cultural tradition was the oronation. With it came new kinds of stone blades, personal ornaments, bone points, and carved objects. In German caves, Archaeologists discovered flutes carved from mammoth ivory and vulture bone, the oldest musical instruments known anywhere on Earth. Music was already part of the human story. These new tools and cultural expressions often appear alongside the final Neanderthal technologies. Not a sudden replacement, but a long overlap. A gradual shift in landscape, population, and identity. Modern humans also seem to have participated in broader social networks. Shells, pigments, and raw materials sometimes traveled hundreds of kilometers. Some groups had trade partners, allies, and distant relatives. Europe did not transform overnight. It changed slowly, generation by generation, as modern humans grew in number, pushed into new territories, and moved toward the northwestern frontier, toward the land that one day would become Britain. When modern humans reached northwestern Europe, Britain was not an island. Sea levels were far lower, locked into massive Ice Age ice sheets. Instead of the English Channel, a vast plain connected Britain to France and the Low Countries. This lost world is now known as Doggerland, a landscape of rivers, marshes, lakes, and grasslands, herds of reindeer, horse, bison, and mammoth grazed freely. Wolves, cave lions, and hyenas prowled the edges. Humans could walk from Germany to Norfolk without touching open sea. Archaeology shows that modern humans entered Britain during warmer intervals, then withdrew when the climate cooled. Many traces have been wiped away by later glaciers, but some clues survive. At Kent's Cavern in Devon, the fragment of a modern human jaw, more than 40,000 years old, marks one of the earliest Homo sapiens in northwestern Europe. These early visitors were not isolated from the continent. They were part of a connected Ice Age world, a northern frontier linked by land, trade, and shared survival. Britain was not the edge of the world, just one more step along the journey. Life in Ice Age Britain demanded planning, cooperation, and resilience. The winters were long and brutal. Food was seasonal. A single mistake could cost a family everything. Homo sapiens followed migrating herds across the open plains. They established seasonal camps where animals were predictable, returning year after year. Hunting was a group effort. Tracking, communication, coordinated drives, and long-range weapons allowed small teams to bring down large prey. Success meant survival. Failure could mean starvation. Meat was cooked, dried, smoked, and stored. Nothing was wasted. Even bone became raw material, turned into needles, barbed points, awls, and tools. Clothing was sophisticated, tailored garments, sewn with bone needles and animal sinew, created layered insulation. This allowed humans to travel far and endure extreme cold, long before the invention of agriculture or permanent settlements. Fire was constant. A hearth meant warmth, light, cooking, tool repair, and community. Around the flames, children watched and learned. Elders told stories, skills, memories, and survival strategies moved from one generation to the next. This was not the life of primitive wanderers. It was the organized, hard-earned knowledge of humans who understood their world intimately. Modern humans had another advantage: how they thought. They approached problems symbolically. They planned far ahead. They used ideas not only to survive, but to reshape the environment itself. Art was not decoration. Symbols carried meaning. A carving could mark territory. A piece of ochre could signal identity. A pattern might preserve memory, ceremony, or teaching. Meaning lasted long after the hands that created it were gone. Language magnified this power. A single idea could travel through a group in minutes. A hunting lesson could last decades. A tool design could spread from tribe to tribe, region to region. Neanderthals were intelligent and capable, but Homo sapiens developed a culture where knowledge did not vanish with the death of an expert. It accumulated, brick by brick, generation by generation. This cognitive system, language, storytelling, planning, symbolism, was a technology as real as a spear or a knife. It changed what humans could achieve. It shaped how they thought, how they cooperated, and eventually, how they spread across the world. Much early British evidence was swept away by glaciers, rising seas, and time. But a few sites reveal the presence of Britain's earliest Homo sapiens. In Kent's Cavern, a human jaw fragment more than 40,000 years old marks one of the earliest modern humans in northwestern Europe. Nearby stone tools belonging to the Aurignacian tradition show that modern humans entered Britain during warmer periods, when climate and resources allowed. These were not permanent settlements. More likely, Britain was a seasonal hunting ground, visited when game was plentiful, abandoned when conditions worsened. Further evidence comes from Gough's Cave in Cheddar Gorge. Horse, deer, and cattle bones show successful hunting and skilled butchery. Some human bones bear cut marks, perhaps ritual cannibalism, perhaps survival in desperate conditions, perhaps mortuary practice, where the dead were processed respectfully. Archaeologists continue to debate the meaning. What is certain is that modern humans did not simply pass through Britain. They lived here, hunted here, adapted to the landscape, and left traces of their presence in the caves and river valleys of a world very different from the one we know today. Homo sapiens entering Britain lived in small, close-knit groups, perhaps 20 to 40 people at a time. These were not isolated wanderers, but branches of wider social networks that stretched beyond the horizon. Family was the foundation of survival. Everyone contributed. Children gathered plants, carried firewood, and absorbed the skills of their elders simply by watching. Adults hunted, stitched clothing, shaped blades, and prepared food. Older members, those no longer strong enough to hunt, became the keepers of knowledge, teaching what experience had earned. Food was gathered communally. Women, men, and older children collected shellfish, roots, seeds, and berries. Hunting parties ranged far from camp, sometimes disappearing for days at a time. Their return was cause for storytelling, tool repair, and shared meals cooked over the fire. These groups were not alone. If hunger struck or climate turned, neighboring bands could offer help. Some archaeologists believe exchange networks stretched for hundreds of kilometers, linking Britain to the plains of Doggerland and mainland Europe. For Homo sapiens, community was not just emotional comfort, it was a survival technology. To understand early Homo sapiens in Britain, we must look at the marks they left behind, the faint echoes of thought scratched into stone and bone. In places like Creswell Crags, on the border of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, engravings of animals and abstract shapes still survive, created more than 12,000 years ago. These are the oldest known cave images in Britain. These carvings are not random. They represent intention. People gathered in flickering firelight to carve meaning into rock. Perhaps they marked territory, recorded memory, or honored the invisible forces they believed shaped life and death. Other objects, beads carved from bone, shells drilled for wearing, animal teeth turned into pendants. Show clothing was more than practical. It could express identity, community, or status. And although Britain has not yet yielded musical instruments, elsewhere in Europe flutes carved from bird bone and mammoth ivory prove that music was already part of human life. Song and rhythm may have echoed off cave walls in the darkness, binding groups together in shared ceremony. These rituals were more than superstition. They created meaning, strengthened identity, and offered comfort in a dangerous world. By the end of the last ice age, Homo sapiens were firmly established across Europe, and periodically within Britain. They had faced brutal winters, shifting landscapes, predators, volcanoes, and the disappearance of other human species. Yet they endured, adapted, expanded. Their arrival in Britain marks the beginning of a story that would unfold for tens of thousands of years, through the Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, the Neolithic farmers, the Bronze Age metal workers, and every generation that followed. The tools they shaped, the art they carved, and the landscapes they crossed laid the groundwork for all later history. They were the first people who looked like us, thought like us, spoke like us, and imagined futures beyond their own lifetimes. This episode has followed the earliest footsteps of our species into the far northwest of the ancient world.